So how does the world's largest democracy elect its president? You'd probably be surprised to hear it's not just a simple popular vote. Nope, the process is this really fascinating mix of weighted votes, deep constitutional rules, and some very, very specific math. Let's unpack it together.
All right, so let's kick things off with a little bit of a puzzle. I've got 3 statements right here about the Indian presidential election. Now here's the catch. Only one of them is actually true. So we're going to put on our detective hats, investigate each claim one by one, and in the process, we'll figure out exactly how this really unique system works.
So where do we start? Well, every good investigation starts with the most basic question, right? Who actually gets to vote for the president? And that leads us straight to our very first claim. Okay, so claim number 1. The president is chosen by a direct popular vote. One person, one vote, all across the country. Sounds pretty straightforward. But is that actually how it's done? Well, the short answer is nope. India does not use a direct election for its president. Instead, it uses something called an electoral college. This is basically a special group of electors who cast votes on behalf of the people. So who's in this exclusive club? So instead of you and me lining up at the polls, the voters are a very specific group of our elected representatives. We're talking about the members of parliament, the MPs, from both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. And we're also talking about the members of legislative assemblies, the MLAs, from every single state plus a few union territories. So yeah, it's an election by our representatives, not directly by us.
And just like that, our first claim is officially busted. The people don't vote directly, their elected legislators do. Okay, 1 down, 2 to go. Let's dig into the next piece of this puzzle.
All right, hang on, because this is where things get really interesting. It's not just about who gets to vote, but what each of those votes is actually worth. See, this isn't a simple one-person, one-vote deal. There's a whole formula at play here, and it's all driven by one huge constitutional idea.
And that big idea is called proportional representation. The whole point, and this comes straight from the Constitution, is to make sure the system is balanced. You want uniformity so states are represented fairly compared to each other. But you also want parity, so the total voting power of all the states put together is equal to the total voting power of the central government. That's the logic behind the whole thing.
So how on earth does that work in practice? Well, for the state legislators, the MLAs, the value of their vote is tied directly to their state's population. You basically take the state's total population, you divide it by the number of MLAs they have, and then you divide that whole thing by 1,000 to get a manageable number. The bottom line? An MLA from a huge state has a vote that carries a lot more weight than an MLA from a tiny one.
Okay, now what about the members of parliament, the MPs? Their vote value is all about creating that balance we were talking about. You take the total value of all the MLA votes from across the entire country, add them all up, and then you divide that massive number by the total number of elected MPs. So let's put it side by side, because this is the crucial takeaway. An MLA's vote value changes depending on their state's population. But for the MPs, the formula guarantees that every single member of parliament, whether they're from a big state or a small one, has a vote of the exact same value.
And that means, ding, 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 claim number 2 is true. The value of the vote of each member of parliament is the same. It's this really clever mathematical trick to balance the power between the states and the union. So we found our correct answer. But hey, our investigation isn't quite done yet. We've still got one more claim to check out.
All right, our last claim is all about what happens when things get messy. If there's some kind of doubt or a big dispute about the election, who gets to be the final referee? Claim number 3 says it's the parliament. But you don't have to look much further than the Constitution itself. Article 71 lays it out crystal clear. Any and all doubts or disputes go to one place and one place only, the Supreme Court of India. And its decision is final. And that's that. Our third verdict is in, and claim number 3 is false. It's the Supreme Court, not Parliament, that has the final word. The judiciary, not the legislature, acts as the ultimate umpire here. So, we solved the puzzle, right? Well, hold on. There's one more absolutely fascinating little detail to this whole process. A real wrinkle in time that changes how we think about those vote value calculations we just went through. 1971. Just that year. What could possibly be so important about 1971? It seems totally random, but trust me, it is the key to a final mind-bending twist in this story.
Okay, so here's the deal. The presidential election is kind of stuck in a time capsule. While other political calculations, like figuring out parliamentary seats, have been updated using more recent census data, the population figures used for the presidential vote are frozen. They are still based on the 1971 census. And this wasn't some oversight. It was a very deliberate choice made through constitutional amendments years ago.
And that really leaves us with a big open question, doesn't it? We have this incredibly intricate system designed for balance and fairness, but it's running on population data that's now over half a century old. So is the system that was built on the demographic reality of 1971 still the best possible fit for the India of today? That's definitely something to chew on. Thanks for digging into this with